Hello, lovely viewers. You are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be presenting to you the detailed analysis of the poem Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park by Oswald Mbuyeseni Mtshali. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. Oswald Mbuyeseni Mtshali was born in 1940 in Vryheid in KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa. At the age of 18, he traveled to Johannesburg to enroll at the University of Witwatersrand, but he was refused admission to the university because of the separate universities legislation. Oswald Mtshali left for the United States of America to study creative writing and education at Columbia University. On his return to South Africa, he published a volume of poems called Fire Flames, which was banned by the government at that time. Oswald Mtshali is the author of the anthology Sounds of Cowhide Drum. He is a poet who could be adequately described as a writer of protest and liberation poems, such as Workers in the Black Township, Children, and even Drunkards in the Streets of Johannesburg. Introduction. The apartheid system operated in South Africa from 1948 to 1993. Apartheid emphasizes separate development of people based on race and color. Under the system, the white people, who are the minority in terms of numbers, were in control of the land and other critical resources and prospered on the back of black labor. Apartheid was based on the superiority of the whites over blacks, and this was reflected in the social, political, economic, and even religious levels. The pass law, for instance, made it obligatory for blacks to carry passes, that is, identification cards on them anytime they entered all white areas. Under the Group Area Act, no blacks could live in white areas, and vice versa. Even blacks could not marry whites, and vice versa. Several writers, artists, politicians, and religious people have exposed the evils of the apartheid system over the years, and it is not surprising that all these forces had a role to play in the demise of the obnoxious apartheid system. The poem is set in South Africa during the apartheid era, when segregation and discrimination against non-white people was enforced by law. The reference to whites-only benches and the Separate Amenities Act suggests this time period. Background of the poem Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park. Until early 1990, white people ruled South Africa through a system called apartheid. Apartheid means separateness in the African language. The laws of the apartheid system classified people according to three major racial groups, that is, whites, Bantu or black Africans, and people from mixed descent. Under the apartheid system, one's skin color determined where he or she could live, the job he or she could do, and what type of education he or she could receive. The apartheid system prohibited most social contact between races and denied any representation of non-whites in government. Apartheid was seriously criticized internationally by countries such as the United States of America. To show their discontentment, the black population revolted in Soweto and other black townships in South Africa. This resulted in the unlawful arrest and imprisonment of so many black nationalists, including Nelson Mandela. Eventually, in 1990, the new president, F.W. de Klerk, proclaimed an end to the apartheid system and also announced the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. South Africa attained independence in 1994 with Nelson Mandela as its first black president. Based on the various visual, auditory, and descriptive images provided by the poet, one can suggest that living in apartheid South Africa was associated with oppression and restrictions. This is because the pigeons seem to enjoy some freedom and privileges, so they can afford to play on private property and live in white-only or restricted areas without punishment. However, the same cannot be said about blacks in South Africa. The situation is different from them, as the laws are only used in excise on them. The speaker of the poem cannot understand why blacks should suffer so much oppression. Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park is a poem by Oswald Mtshali that reflects on the presence of pigeons in Oppenheimer Park, and he uses this imagery to convey deeper themes and societal commentary. The poem is characterized by its evocative language and thought-provoking content. The poem seems to touch on the theme of defiance, authority, and the treatment of different groups within the society. It appears to juxtapose the behavior of the pigeons, which are depicted as trespassing and engaging in public indecency, with the actions of other groups, obviously the black folks in South Africa, possibly heighten disparity in treatment and privilege. The poem also carries an undertone of irony and sarcasm, which satirizes the apartheid system and laws, as it questions why the pigeons are not held accountable for their actions, while other individuals, or blacks, face consequences for similar behaviors. In effect, the speaker is yearning for the freedom and privileges that the pigeons are enjoying. The poem, Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park, by Oswald Mtshali, is deeply rooted in the context of apartheid-era South Africa. The poem reflects the social and political realities of the time, offering a poignant commentary on the injustice and power dynamics prevalent during the apartheid regime. Oswald Mtshali's use of imagery and symbolism in the poem likely serves to provoke contemplation about societal norms, power dynamics, and the treatment of marginalized groups. The juxtaposition of the pigeons' actions with the actions of other entities in the park may serve as a commentary on social injustice and the arbitrary nature of authority. This can be seen as a reflection of the broader societal dynamics and power structures that are prevalent during the apartheid era in South Africa. Oswald Mtshali's Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park is a poem about the bad treatment of the black people by white rulers in South Africa in the days of the apartheid system. It is a protest against all the absurd, unlawful, and obnoxious laws and the restrictions of black Africans by the ruling whites. To make us know and understand the plight of black people living in apartheid South Africa, the speaker uses pigeons to demonstrate the level of freedom the animals are enjoying, as opposed to the restrictions placed on blacks by a hostile system. The readers at this point are left with no other option than to sympathize with the speaker. Pigeons at the Oppenheimer Park can be viewed as a powerful literary expression that captures the complexities and injustice of apartheid South Africa, offering a lens through which we can examine the societal and political landscape of that era. The speaker of the poem, an oppressed black in South Africa, uses satire to comment on the absurdities of certain laws and social norms, particularly those related to segregation and public decency during the apartheid regime. The speaker's use of irony and sarcasm, such as expressing outrage over pigeons breaking laws that are rigidly, strictly, firmly, and harshly used to oppress black people, is a clever way to highlight the hypocrisy and absurdity of these laws. Let's now take our first reading of the poem. I wonder this. Pigeons in the Oppenheimer Park are never arrested or persecuted for trespassing on private property and charge public indecency. Every day, I see these insolent birds perched on white-only benches, defying all authority. Don't they know of the Separate Amenities Act? A white policeman in full uniform, complete with a holster 38 special, passes by without raising a reprimanding finger at the offenders who are flouting the law. They not only sit on hollowed benches, they also mess them up with bed sheets. Oh, holy ideology! Look at those two at the crest of the jumping impala. They are making love in full view of madams, hobos, giggling office girls. What is the world coming to? Where is the Sacred Immorality Act? Ag. Sis. After taking our first reading of the poem, let us now do a stanza-by-stanza analysis of the lines contained in the poem, starting with the first stanza. I wonder this. Pigeons in the Oppenheimer Park are never arrested or persecuted for trespassing on private property and charge public indecency. The speaker opens the poem by observing that pigeons in Oppenheimer Park are not arrested or persecuted for trespassing or public indecency. implying that the same rules don't apply to the pigeons as they do to humans. Oppenheimer Park is a public space in South Africa, specifically in Johannesburg. This park is one of the green spaces in South Africa and is rich in flora and bird life. The physical setting of the poem is a public park with benches, possibly with segregation signs which are enforced by authorities. The beginning of the poem clearly brings out the absurdity in the apartheid laws, in which animals, such as pigeons, are accorded more dignity and freedom than humans, specifically blacks in South Africa. The setting and background provide a rich context for the satire, allowing the speaker to critique the absurdity and injustice of apartheid laws and societal norms. Right from the very first stanza of the poem, the poet delves into the societal norms and attitudes that perpetrated apartheid, including segregation, discrimination, and oppression. Let's now move to the second stanza. Every day, I see these insolent birds perched on white-only benches, defying all authority. Don't they know of the Separate Amenities Act? A white policeman in full uniform, complete with a holster 38 special, passes by without raising a reprimanding finger at the offenders who are flouting the law. They not only sit on hollowed benches, they also mess them up with bed sheets. The second stanza of the poem reveals to readers that the speaker has been watching and observing these birds for a very long time, or he has been watching them for a while and has realized that these pigeons are always sitting on white-only benches, defying the segregation laws which could lead a black person to prison or serious legal consequences. The irony is that the pigeons are ignoring these rules which are used to enforce segregation and discrimination. They are equally ignorant of the Separate Amenities Law, which ensures that people from different races use different facilities. That is, a black is not supposed to be seen using a white property or a white facility. The speaker in this stanza depicts how the blacks were dehumanized by this obnoxious system that allows animals more freedom and privileges than the black person, and so, by extension, the speaker is yearning for this kind of freedom. Another thing the speaker tries to make readers realize is that most of the laws and offenses were nonsensical, since in real sense, they don't have any serious repercussions. They only apply to blacks and not everyone in the society. For instance, there is nothing wrong with blacks and whites sitting on the same bench in the park. That is to say, there are no serious repercussions for these actions. The speaker moves to describe the policeman who is fully armed and ready to arrest any offenders of the law. But the interesting thing here is that this same law enforcer or policeman is ignoring the pigeons' transgressions, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. The pigeons are flouting the law without consequence, while blacks in South Africa will likely face punishment or serious legal actions for the same action. The persona then asks a sarcastic question, meant to reveal the absurdity of the apartheid laws. He wants to know if these pigeons are not aware of the Law of Separate Amenities Act. The Separate Amenities Act, also known as Act No. 49 of 1953, was a significant component of the apartheid system of racial discrimination in South Africa. This act enforced the segregation of all public places, including buildings and transport, with the aim of limiting contact between different racial groups in the country. The Separate Amenities Act was passed in 1953 and gave governments and privately owned enterprises the right to reserve facilities such as beaches and post offices for specific racial groups. It sought to create separate social environments for the white population and other racial groups, thereby institutionalizing racial segregation in public spaces. The Act made visible the long-standing practices of segregation while also making other aspects of racial inequality invisible. This Act was a pivotal part of the apartheid system and played a significant role in enforcing segregation in South Africa. Notice how the white policeman, who is fully armed and ready to reprimand anyone who violates the law, ignores the violation of the pigeons. A holster is a leather or fabric case for carrying a firearm on the person, either on the hip or the chest. The speaker comments that these pigeons do not only flout the law carelessly, they equally mess up these pride's benches with bed sheets, something blacks cannot do. Yet, they are not allowed to access white facilities or use the benches. It is worth noting that apartheid was a system of institutionalized racial discrimination and segregation that enforced separation between white and non-white people in all aspects of life, including public spaces, amenities, and services. The speaker's wonder arises from the fact that these birds mess up the bench, yet they are allowed the privilege of using these facilities while blacks are not. Let's now move to discuss the last stanza of the poem. Oh, holy ideology! Look at those two at the crest of the jumping impala. They are making love in full view of madams, hobos, giggling office girls. What is the world coming to? Where is the Sacred Immorality Act? Ag. Sis. The last stanza of the poem is a satirical commentary on the hypocrisy and absurdity of the apartheid regime in South Africa. The poetic persona is mocking the strict laws and social norms that enforce social segregation and public decency. Yet, pigeons are able to flout these laws with impunity. The poem highlights the contradiction of a system that enforced harsh laws on blacks, but allowed pigeons to break laws without consequence. The speaker observes and expresses shock and disbelief at the pigeons' public display of affection on the so-called guarded and protected private property. The use of words such as ag, sis, in the African language means oh, shame. As to the comedic effects, the image of the pigeons making love in public without fear of reprisal is a powerful metaphor for the absurdity of a society that policed human behavior so strictly, yet allowed animals to be loose. That is to say, the animals enjoyed more freedom than blacks in apartheid South Africa. The final lines, ag, sis, are an expression of his aspiration and disgust, emphasizing the speaker's frustration with the hypocrisy and absurdity of the system. Overall, the poem uses humor, irony, and satire to critique the apartheid regime and its oppressive laws. Structure of the poem. It is 3 stanzas long with 17 lines, written in simple language, each with a specific focus and tone. The lines vary in length, with some being short and others being longer, creating a sense of rhythm and flow. There is no consistent rhyme scheme, adding to the satirical and ironic tone. This poem equally makes use of enjambment. Some lines run to the next line without punctuation, creating a sense of urgency and emphasis. We equally have the use of caesura in this poem. There are pauses within lines, created by commas, highlighting specific words or phrases. The poem builds up to a climax in the final stanza, where the satire and irony are most pronounced. The structure of the poem adds to its satirical and ironic tone, creating a sense of flow and emphasis that highlights the absurdity and injustice of the apartheid system. Let's now move to the major themes of the poem. In this poem, we come across the following themes: freedom and oppression, hypocrisy and irony, racism and discrimination. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.